Welcome to Ladies Talking Leafs. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sil.
And welcome to March. Yay, winter's going to be soon over, hopefully. Another few weeks till spring. But this is the trade deadline edition of our show. What will the Leafs do? Will they do anything? That's the question. And it's a fun time for us fans because of that. And for the players, maybe not that much. But before we get into the show, we have a quick reminder that our show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion.
With the largest selection of odds on everything from the NHL and NBA to college basketball and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to a hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, every win. Visit the website today, betonline.ag, and make the game day action count a little bit more. BetOnline, the game starts here. Please gamble responsibly, though. If you or someone you know needs some support or advice, you can reach out to Connex Ontario or an organization near you.
All right. So, yeah, we got into the trade deadline fun a little bit with a couple of polls on social media. So one of the questions we asked Leaf fans on X and Facebook was, what position do you think the Leafs need to focus on getting at the deadline? So the options were a top 4 D-man, a legit third-line center, or depth players. It was interesting, actually, because on Facebook, the most liked option was to get a top 4 D-man at 50%, and the third-line center was at 40%. Whereas on X, it was flipped. They were quite high, actually, on the third-line center, like 68% wanted the third-line center.
That one got my vote.
Yeah, I would have voted that as well. And so that was 66%, and the top 4 D-man was 26%. And the depth players on X, it was 8%, and on Facebook, it was 10%. So, we got some comments too, I guess. One comment that I liked on Facebook was, we need the bomb shot from the point. So that was, I guess, someone that voted for the defenseman on Facebook. But yeah, I don't know. I just, it would be nice to have that shot from the point, but I just think the center position, I mean, we see it when Tavares is out, Matthews gets out, like it's tough for this team to get through that. And Domi's not a centerman. As much as we have him as a centerman, he's a winger, and we just don't have that depth. So hopefully Brad Treliving is able to get something to shore up our center ice position.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just a better complement to the players that we have that we're just not able to get as much out of because they're kind of playing roles that don't really suit them as much. So anyway, the other question we put out was related to what we would be okay as Leaf Nation with the Leafs giving up. And so the question was like asking Leaf fans to put on their GM hat and tell us, if the Leafs were to get a top 4 D-man or forward at the deadline, who would you be willing to give up? And of course, we said, have a happy Saturday. Anyway, so the options were Cowan plus a first-round pick, Minton and a first-round pick, Nyes or McMahon plus a prospect, or other. So again, it's kind of interesting because it seems like the Facebook demographic and the X demographic, as far as Leaf fan, is a little bit different. So just like with yours, the percentages were sort of flip-flopped. So on Facebook, Cowan and a first rounder was not that high choice at 15%, but on X, it was 44%. Minton on Facebook seemed to be the one people were most willing to give up at 69%, but only 36% of X participants were willing to give him up. Nyes or McMahon and a prospect. Across the board, nobody thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
And It was pretty much similar on both sites, with Facebook at 15 and X at 20%, willing to give up just another kind of roster player. But yeah, personally for me, I'd be more willing to give up Cowan in a first round pick personally. Just because he's a smaller player, it's going to be a little harder for him to crack the lineup. With the type of talent we already have. Minton, what are we asking for right now? He's basically going to be that perfect guy. He's going to grow into that role. And why would you want to give up on a kid that's got that kind of hockey IQ? So that personally is the way I look at that.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to look at it too. Like, we have Mitch Marner. So how long is it going to be? Like as a scoring winger, and
right? True.
As long, like, how long is it going to be for Easton Cowan to be able to get into the line? Because that's what he is, right? He's projected to be like a top 6, maybe even the top 3, like a winger, scoring winger, and we already have that. So
at least for this year,
and we. Most likely, I have a feeling we're going to have it beyond this year, depending on what happens in the playoffs, right?
Exactly.
We can't really. I don't know. The guy needs to play. He needs to play. For
sure. And he's not a depth scoring guy. No. That's. I don't think that's the role that he was brought in to perform. So he's definitely going to need ice time, and
you don't want it to be like another Nick Robertson situation. I mean, Nick Robertson was a second round pick, but he was a 50-goal scorer with the Peterborough Petes, right? So in some ways, the development, maybe the Leafs, because we have that scoring winger depth already, or we had it for quite a number of years now, even though it doesn't work out quite well in the playoffs. But during the regular season, it does. So yeah, I'm going with keeping Minton as well, where we're shorthanded at center at that position. And
I will say this though, if we're giving up either one of those guys plus a first rounder, we better be getting like a top flight person. Like,
for sure.
Like the trades that they're kind of floating out there right now, like I would not give up either of these guys plus a first rounder for. Let's just get that out there.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that's very, very rich, and it better be somebody pretty special if you're going to be, sending those guys out the door.
Yeah.
Personally. All right. So now we're going to get into the show. And of course, we're going to start with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then for our third period segment, we left a little extra time for this because we're welcoming back to the show our Ladies Talking Leafs insider, Mike Augello, to talk more trade deadline with us. So without any further ado, let's talk Leafs.
All right, the good, the bad, the ugly. Yeah, it's been a while since we've done this segment, but so my good is John Tavares. Yes. So reason why, he's just, I don't know. 7 points in 8 games since coming back from injury. I just think he's been solid all around. He actually is tied with William Nylander in both power play goals and game-winning goals too. So I thought that was pretty impressive. And of course, his specialty, the face-off circle, he's leading the team at 57%. So, I mean, he's just Mr. Consistency again this year. Despite, I think the break really did.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely a person that it really did him well. And he's come back like refreshed.
He looks fresh.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's strong. It was just funny, actually, in that, I believe it was the Ranger game on Saturday night where he got that penalty, which wasn't a penalty, where it's just like he was so strong against the guy in front of the net, and they gave him an interference call, but it was just because it was 2 guys battling, and Tavares was the stronger of the 2 guys, and the other guy, he fell down basically in front of the net, but it wasn't because Tavares was like beating him down or anything. It was simply strength. He was showing his power in front of the net. And I just love what I'm seeing from JT right now.
Yeah, that was Friday night. We're not used to not having Saturday night games. anyway.
See, I don't like not having started.
Yeah, no, it's just something really wrong about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and even today, like how many breakaways is this guy getting too? Like he had a beautiful breakaway goal today, Sunday in our afternoon matchup, another, weird time slot.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's looking so spry and really free out there, which is great because we kind of need it right now. And he's been playing really, really well
at center position, like
100%.
We need him. Yeah.
I never would have thought that he would be getting better and better as the season went on, but that seems to be kind of what's happening with him. And there's been a lot of talk about moving him to the wing, and it doesn't seem like we're there yet with him. So.
Not right
now.
That's for sure. Right. We need him the way he's playing right now. If he can keep it go, we want him to keep it going right through to the right into the playoffs. So
yeah. Definitely. Okay, so my good is, you mentioned him a little bit earlier, is Nick Robertson. He's been on the bad side of our calls many times, earlier on in the season, and it's taken him a little while to come into form, but he's added a little bit of an edge to his game, and I think it's really paying off for him right now. He's got points in last 5 games, but it's more his play defensively, his tenaciousness. He had a really big breakout game in the Boston game with 2 points, and even in the Chicago game he had 2 goals. So he's been playing really well of late, and but he's also kind of getting noticed by his coach, and also some of the players are speaking out on his behalf. Berube said that he's like, his tenaciousness, and he's got, body contact on pucks and stuff. Like, we never thought we would be saying that sentence with regards to talking about Nick Robertson. And then I just loved Benoit's quote about him. How he said, I told him that it's harder to get hit by a smaller guy because they get you right in the ribs. And and so I think that it's nice that he's getting noticed in this way. And even if he's not getting the puck into the net, he is adding to his line mates being able to, by making those plays along the boards. And that's not something that was part of his game previously.
I think he's really getting the benefit, or seeing the benefits too, of Craig Berube's coaching abilities, like to get a different something else from his game that will that gives him the opportunity to score those goals and to keep him getting that ice time. He's really benefiting from that. And he's picking his spots right too, because in years previous, he was getting injured. Knock on wood, of course, that he won't get injured now. But he's not going into the corners like just flying in there sort of thing. And then he's getting hit and most likely not coming out of it very well, whether it be shoulder injury or knee injuries that he's had. He's picking his spots very well that way. Yeah.
He's really flourished under Berube, I think, and I think he's learned a lot this year. We're talking trade deadline. I suppose it's possible that he's a guy that could end up, getting, picked up by somebody. But then that's like credit to him, because now he is a true asset to our team. And as much as we love the way he's playing, when you're playing well, those are the kind of guys that teams are going to covet and want. And they obviously, everyone knows that he's a goal scorer. He's a sniper. So in a good situation, you're going to get points out of him as well. So,
yeah. All right. So moving on to the bad. Okay, the bad is this Chris Tanev injury, my Macedonian warrior. Basically, it's bad and good, I guess, because he's technically not supposed to be. It's day to day, the injury, right? But when they said that they saw him going out of the TD Garden with a sling, with his arm in a sling,
that's a little frightening.
Yes, yeah.
At least one good thing, though, I have to say, is it's the upper body. So that's actually a help. in a way. If it's the lower body, I might be a little bit more worried because that's his bread and butter.
With the blocking shots. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not only bad because he's injured, obviously, but it's bad because it seems to have thrown our defense in a flux to say that all the pairings and all that one person being out has made our defense a little bit suspect, and that was proven especially today
100% today
in the Pittsburgh game. Yes, yeah, but we just don't seem to have that connectivity once Kristanov is out of the lineup. The pairings are just off.
It's crazy how both of those guys, really, him and McCabe, are really the linchpin for our whole team defense.
We talked the same way when McCabe was out.
Yeah.
We mentioned the same thing. So as soon as one of those guys out, and that I don't like going into the playoffs too much. But because, we had that years ago with Jake Muzzin, right? When he was our key guy and he got knocked out and out of the playoffs, and then we were done in that.
So I guess in that regard, if you want to look at the different players that, different position that we might be looking at, that's a case for another D-man, right? So, another quality guy that, so that if one goes down, then we have somebody that can slide right in there.
Colton Parayko, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll see. Yeah.
If we're talking about those types of trades and everyone's talking about the whole Braden Schenn thing, that's the only way I would make that deal. Not just how when they went out and they got O'Reilly and Achari,
right?
I would be fine if it was Schenn and Parayko.
Right.
More so than just one or the other.
Yeah. Then that would make it worth the first round pick.
Yeah.
In addition to the player, whichever
I would
player.
say that. Yeah. All right. So my bad, which I know you don't agree with, is Austin Matthews. Okay. Is he playing bad? No. Is he playing up to his standard and ability? Absolutely not. After coming back from Four Nations, I don't know. He's been a little bit of a shell of himself. I still think that, there's something not right with him, but because he went there, now he's got no leg to stand on with regards to that, and he has to play. To me, his skating is still not looking great. In the last 5 games, he's got 5 points, but today was the first time he's scored an actual non-empty net goal.
I'd say it was January 22nd, no? I think it was January 22nd. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So it's been a while. And is that typical Austin Matthews? No, it is not. And right now, he only has 50 points total for the season. His assists is pretty much kind of around where he normally is, maybe a little bit less. But as far as the goals, he's got 21 goals only right now. And as far as other things like game winners, he only has 1 this year. And
it's
the least he's ever had before that is 5. And that's in his second and third season.
Yeah.
A few seasons ago, he had 12.
Yeah.
So he is right now a little bit of a shell of himself. He's not quite right. His skating still doesn't look good. He doesn't have, we talked about this before, and I think we talked about it on our last quick hits as well. He's just not getting power from his, lower body, and it shows. And that is really showing up in his lack of goal scoring. His timing is just not there. And he was caught on at least 2 of those goals today too. In bad defensive positions. I don't know.
But
I don't know what you can say to counter that, Christine.
The thing is, though, it's reminding me of, I think you mentioned it actually before, and other people have mentioned it as well. But it's kind of like a Steve Yzerman situation, in my opinion, too. Almost.
The fact that he's
not scoring
captain now.
And he's captain, but he's not scoring. But he's on a 9-game point streak right now.
Yeah, he's got basically he's got 1 assist in each game, but it's 1.
Yeah, but they're winning too. That's my.
Yeah,
that's how
but
I
is that
balance
because
it out.
of him or despite him? That is the thing.
I mean, but he's contributing.
He
right?
is. But when I see JT have that breakout goal today, who do we normally see doing that? It's him.
Yeah.
But not John Tavares.
But we know he has that injury, obviously, whatever it is he's dealing with, like you're saying. And to me, if he's contributing in other ways, and he's not going to be perfect every game, like today you're saying, like he wasn't defensively.
It's still bad, in my opinion, when he is not playing even a little bit better than he is now. Like,
but
just
I'd rather have
winning.
Yes.
That's not good enough, in my opinion.
Not for you and for a lot of Leaf fans, probably, but I like the fact that they're winning, and I'd rather have him in the lineup contributing than not at all. But I do think...
But he also contributed on the wrong side of things today twice.
Yeah. Today is that's today.
And he normally wouldn't do that. Like, I have not seen him make as many mistakes in front of our net as he has this year.
Yeah.
You have to at least admit that.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, he hasn't been himself. Like, I admit to that, or I agree with you with that. Like, he's not 100% Austin Matthews this season, the whole season. So but the fact that he's contributing for me and they're winning is enough to say, I'm okay with him. It's okay, sort of thing. He's not good, but it's okay. He's not bad. And he needs what we said off the air before the show. He needs, hopefully they're still in this little bit of they are in the race for the first place in the Atlantic right now with Florida. Austin Matthews needs a couple of games off at least before the season ends. And hopefully, I would have preferred, and we both mentioned this too, we agreed that after that Four Nations that we were hoping that Marner and Matthews would have at least been given one game off, like to start, whether it be that Carolina game, like one of them be off, and then the next game, the other guy be off.
The Chicago game was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason for them to actually have to go out on the road and with them that night. Like there's,
So,
but anyways, I don't expect it to stay this way. Let me just say that. Austin Matthews is an incredible player. He's just not. This is not a reflection on him.
Him's goal scoring self mostly.
And if he's not scoring goals, then he's just not him.
Not what we're used to.
Yes, but he's still not, to me, he's still not doing all the little intangible things that you're saying to the extent that he should be. Even though the team is winning, it's not because of him. It's not because of him doing the little things. It's not.
No, it's not. No. But it's about the whole team and him doing it. That's how I'm being a little bit calmer about it. But
I'm calm. You're just making me mad with your devil's advocate. Anyway,
this is what our listeners want to see, though. Too, a couple of them have mentioned that, right? So this is good. This is good. But
anyways,
yes, he definitely can be. He's not Austin Matthews like this season, and it'll be interesting. We're not even going to go there for now. Yeah, but he's fine for now.
I do expect him to turn it around, but I don't think it's going to happen if they keep playing him like this.
Yes.
They need to actually just admit that he needs a little bit of TLC and
not to go to Frankfurt again or wherever he went to in Germany.
No, but he needs some rest.
Yeah.
Some rest and some treatment, and then hopefully he'll be feeling like his old self again.
Going into the playoffs especially. So we definitely need that. We need the goal scoring Matthews in the playoffs because that's been
for sure. But it could be a flip. If it's the flip side of what we normally have gotten, where he's been lights out during the season and disappears in the playoffs. If we get the opposite this year, I'm fine with it all. That's fine.
Oh yeah,
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what's going to happen. Let's just hope.
Cross our fingers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have no ugly because the Leafs are on a 5-game win streak. So
so it's really hard
majorly to
find any ugliness these days.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right, so we could be talking about some new Maple Leafs, though, in the next edition of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Hopefully it will be all good. In the meantime, to talk about the upcoming trade deadline and all things Leafs, we welcome our Ladies Talking Leafs insider, Mike Augello, for our third period segment.
Okay, for our third period segment, we welcome our Ladies Talking Leafs insider, Mike Augello, to talk about all things trade deadline.
Mike covers the Leafs and the NHL as a reporter and is a member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association. Mike is also the co-editor covering the Buffalo Sabres for the Hockey News, and he is also co-managing editor of Hockey Hot Stove, and Mike is co-host of the Off the Post podcast and the Leafs Convo. Thanks for making the time to join us again, Mike.
It's always a pleasure, and after that intro, like I'll see you later. Goodbye.
Yeah, it's getting
long. Yeah.
Getting longer and longer. Yeah. But let's start off, I guess, with a tweet or a post that you did yesterday on X about the scouts that you saw at the Sabres game. You said the Habs Sabres game last night. We're recording this on the Sunday.
Right.
12 teams, including the Leafs, were there. So,
yeah.
Do you think the Leafs are seriously looking at a particular player there, or they were just making...
I think they're dotting their I's and they're crossing their T's. I mean, there's a couple potential options for them. I mean, depending on what you believe, and I'm sure we'll get into that. Jake Evans is one of the 4 or 5 center options as rentals before the deadline. David Savard is one of the right-hand shot options before the deadline. It's possible that they're in on one or both of them. I don't even remember
when was the last time that they had a trade with the Habs. So because you've already mentioned to us before, like with the Sabres, probably will never happen a trade with them. No. But with the Habs, I think it's just as much. Like it's just.
I remember Dan Dow and Gaston Gingras for a couple second-round picks. But
I don't know what we got for Damphus. Vincent Damphus. Remember him?
No, he went to Edmonton. It was part of the Fuhrer.
Oh, that was Edmonton first? Oh, okay. All right.
The Doug Gilmour deal, I believe, was with Montreal.
No, he went to New Jersey first.
Yeah, he went to New Jersey first.
No. I'm saying when he came back the second time. Remember, he went to started off in St. Louis, then he went to Calgary, then he went to Toronto, then he went to New Jersey, then it was like Buffalo, Chicago, Tampa, and then he ended up in Montreal. And I'm pretty sure they got him from Montreal in that deadline deal, and then he played the one.
Oh, and then that's when he got hurt. Yeah.
That's when he got hurt.
So,
that's possible.
I'm fairly sure there was something in between, but nothing of major consequence. I mean, you know how the Habs and they just love the Leafs in Montreal.
Yeah. Yeah, but is there anybody on the Sabres side? I mean, you covered the Sabres too. Like, I mean, it's most likely not going to happen. But
I don't even factor in as a possibility. But the Sabres don't have a center that I think would be somebody who would be a fit as a 3.
Right.
And I mean, maybe a Henry Jokiharju as a right shot defenseman, but I think the Leafs are looking for a more physical righty. That's why Savard, or we'll talk about Luke Schenn, but I think that they're looking for more of a veteran and a more physical right shot defenseman. So I don't see a fit between Buffalo and Toronto, but there's definitely not a fit, because if the Leafs and if the Sabres fans saw that they made a trade with the Leafs, they would up Chuck.
I'd like to see that.
That was quite the game last night with the Habs, though. They were like, they really hate each other there. The Habs and the Sabres. Oh my God. They were like,
it was, and it's funny because the fan, it was about a 50-50 split. I mean, we know that there's a lot of Montreal fans in the Hamilton area because their AHL team has been in Hamilton
Bulldogs.
for a long time.
Yeah.
So, I would say it was almost a 50-50 split. And, Sabres fans are not stupid right now. I mean, the season ticket holders are selling their season tickets for whatever they can get. I'm sure the game, I think it's March the 20th that the Leafs are playing in Buffalo. That's going to be like that, and the McDavid game on the 10th will be the two last sellouts. And then I'm sure everybody will run for the hills. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Well, let's move on then. Like, since you mentioned a name there. So on Saturday, Leafs GM Brad Treliving had a short get together with the media. He didn't really say much when it comes to the deadline, except he did say this one quote. He said, "It's not about taking big swings. It's about identifying where you can help your team the most. And sometimes it doesn't require a flashy move." So what do you take from his comments there? Like, could it be that they really do nothing or just make minor moves? You mentioned Luke Schenn there as a possible fit for us. We know that he had a good playoff a couple years removed with playing with Morgan Riley, and that's basically been a hole all season trying to find someone to play with him. So, what do you think as far as what might be on the front burner for Treliving right now?
Well, Treliving, I think, poured cold water on the burning embers rather than gasoline. Because, I mean, all we've heard, and don't get me wrong, like I said, the insiders such as Pierre LeBrun and CJ and Elliot Friedman, they're well tied in. They're the best in the business. And if they say that there's something in terms of interest there, then there is. But the prices that are being quoted and being reported are patently absurd.
I think I agree with that. Like all the first round picks for like every single fringe person, that to me is just ridiculous.
Well, okay. I mean, if you're talking Scott Lawton and a first round pick, Philadelphia, if Philadelphia gets a first round pick for Scott Lawton, do I have a hat around here that I could eat? But I think they could get a conditional one, depending if the team gets, whatever team trades gets the Stanley Cup final, something like that. I mean, but, Scott Lawton is a bad number 3. He's not a good offensive player. He's a physical guy. But if you're talking, and this is everybody's talking about Braden Schenn. Yeah. Everyone is talking about Braden Schenn. And, Craig Berube basically extolled his virtues. I mean, you want a Stanley Cup with him. Of course he's going to like him. And he's a leader and, but the problem is that he's got 3 years left at $6.5 million.
He's old.
He's 33 years old. He's not particularly fleet of foot. And he's only going to get older and slower. So unless you're getting St. Louis to eat 50%, which would be $3.25 million, even if they do that, it's still 3 years in term. And he's on pace for about 48 points this year, which is not bad. But what they're talking about in terms of, they want their 2026 first round pick. They want one of Easton Cowan or Fraser Minton, and they want a Nikita Grabyankin or a Ben Danford. And I'm like, okay, go stick it. Doug Armstrong. I don't blame Doug Armstrong for asking for everything he possibly could get. But I think what he's doing is he's using the Toronto media market to drum up the, ooh, here we go, folks. And it's like, Isn't
that what everybody does, though? And then we end up getting just like scraps in the end.
Yeah,
maybe that's what Treliving's doing, is he's tempering expectations, because
I think he
knows what's real.
I think he's tempering expectations, and I also think he's pouring cold water on, like, okay, we're not giving up this package. Could we give up Nick Robertson, even though Nick Robertson's playing well now and scoring? Would we give up Nick Robertson and the 2026 first round pick for Braden Schenn? I think they would do that. I don't think they're giving up a 19-year-old in Easton Cowan who is going to be, a 3 years at an entry level contract when you're paying all these guys 11, 13 and a quarter, that you need entry level players. You're not going to trade a Fraser Minten who could be your number 3 center, or, your number, if they move to John Tavares to the wing next year, if they re-sign him, Braden Schenn steps in as your number 2, and then Fraser Minten is your number 3. I don't think they want to trade him. And Ben Danford apparently is having a very good year in the OHL. So you're talking about a 19-year-old right shot defenseman who you drafted in the first round. Like, they don't want to give up these guys. Yeah. So I think what Treliving was doing was trying to, cool things down and say, we're not paying that. Maybe he's legislating it a little bit in the media, but I think that it more than likely, if Doug Armstrong realizes that he's not going to milk, the Leafs dry for Braden Schenn, he may keep his powder dry and say, we'll trade him in the summer, or we'll trade him next year when he's got 2 years left in his contract. But he's got the clock ticking when it comes to Braden Schenn, because if he drops significantly, then he's not going to get a first round pick and something. So it would behoove him to move him sooner rather than later. If that's the case, he's got to lower his price.
Mm-hmm. What about Max Domi? I just wanted to ask, what do you think? A couple of fans actually on our Facebook page, they mentioned, I guess in a deal, Max Domi in a first round draft pick. Do you think Max Domi, do you think Treliving would be interested in dealing Domi? I mean, he hasn't had the greatest season this year, and
I might think that Treliving might be interested in dealing him. I don't think Doug Armstrong would be interested in dealing, because Max
the
Domi
contract probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 more years. It's half the amount that Braden Schenn is making. But he's had an abysmal year. He's had he got 3 goals. I mean, it's like there's some defensemen like on the bottom pairing on bad teams, they have more goals than Max Domi. Now, I do think he scored in the playoffs last year. He could score in the playoffs this time around.
Yeah.
But he's not having a good year, so you'd be selling low on him. And who would want him?
Yeah.
And I honestly think it's like the issue here, as we've described and talked about many a time throughout the year, he's just not a center. That's the whole thing. He's being forced to play center because, I don't know if Calle Jarnkrok is a center either, but they just don't have a third line answer. They plugged him in because he has played center in the past, but he's just not a very good center. And I think he's a better winger than he is a center. And I think eventually that's the whole motivation here, to get that center at the deadline, is to move Max Domi to the wing and hopefully move Ryan Reeves to the ECHL.
So actually one more thing, Sil, I'm going to get a word in with Calle, because you mentioned Calle Jarnkrok. Mm-hmm. So do you think that they're possibly thinking, like between Berube and Treliving, to think that he's going to be the third line center now that he's going to come back versus San Jose? Apparently he's going to play on Monday night.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's, one of those players that it's like kind of like a little gift with at the deadline without actually doing anything? I don't know.
He's played center in the past, but I think he's primarily been a winger. I mean, I think that Jarnkrok either plugs in as a Pontus Holmberg replacement, even though Holmberg has played really well of late with Tavares and Nylander. But, Jarnkrok is a better fit as a top 6 winger, or even a mid 6 winger if he plays on the third line. That would mean maybe Nick Robertson. I mean, if Jarnkrok comes back and then all of a sudden you're moving Nick Robertson to the fourth line, then you may as well trade Nick Robertson, because he's not going to play enough minutes to really benefit you. And I think he's an asset, and everybody knows he can score, and he's been better defensively and more, I think, speedy this year. And I think he's had a good year, and I think he's an asset now that they can get something for. But I don't think Jarnkrok, I don't think the answer for third line center is either Domi, Minten, or somebody not on this roster right now.
Outside the organization, yeah. All right.
Okay, now can I ask my question?
I'll let you go, Sil.
Okay, so having said that, are there any names out there that you're hearing that would be a fit and more realistic?
I mean, I think I've mentioned this a bunch of times. Yanni Gourde is the guy I keep going back to.
I think he might be coming back sooner than later, right? From injury.
Wednesday, supposedly he's gonna play the last game for Seattle right before the deadline. If that doesn't tell you that he's trying to get traded, but yeah, I mean, I look at some of the bottom feeders right now, and Scott Lawton is probably going to get traded by Philadelphia if they get close to their price. He's got another year left in his contract. I particularly don't think he's a good fit with the Leafs. He's physical, but I if they give up a future first round pick for Scott Lawton, I think Leaf fans should be really upset because I don't think he's that good of a player. I mean, he's okay. I'm just saying, if they give up a second and they get Scott Lawton and they get another year out of him, then okay. But a number one for him, no. Gord is a rental, but he's coming off an injury, and I think that is going to mitigate what Seattle can get back. Now, I've heard chatter that Seattle wants to bring him back. Okay, well, they can bring him back after they trade him. It behooves them to get as much as they can for him, and then if he decides I want to go back to the Pacific Northwest, then great. I mean, there are a few other names out there. I mean, Jake Evans with Montreal, that might be the reason why there was a Leaf scout in Buffalo. Nick Bukestad, he's just big and slow. I mean, he was not exactly gangbusters for Edmonton in the playoffs last year. So there's maybe 3 or 4, I think center candidates that would be sort of an upgrade. I mean, it's addition by subtraction when it comes to third line center. If you move Max Domi out and you put him as a second line winger or a third line winger, and you put somebody more defensively responsible up the middle on the third line behind Matthews and Tavares, I think you improve the scope of this team overall. I have to say, though, also after the game we just watched against Pittsburgh, Austin Matthews has been a ghost. I know he scored a goal today. He has been a ghost. This is 1 5-on-5 goal in 10 games. He had an empty netter. He is not the Austin Matthews of, 69 goals. He's not even the Austin Matthews that played in the Four Nations, which is, of course, the reason why I think a lot of Leaf fans and a lot of fans of teams around the NHL were against this Four Nations tournament because of the possibility of their players getting hurt. And how do you think the Florida Panthers, the Boston Bruins, Charlie McAvoy, the Florida Panthers with Matthew Tkachuk, the Vegas Golden Knights with Shea Theodore, how do you think they liked the Four Nations? I'm sure they loved it.
Yeah. No. Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting anyways. So do you think anybody, like any of our bottom, like David Kampf, like, do you think any of our roster players might be going out the door possibly? Like to say that other teams could be looking at them, or not really?
I think there's a well, okay.
If we don't want to deal, let's say Cowan, like our younger, like we don't have a lot of depth there, obviously, in our system.
I don't think David Kampf has much value in the trade market because he's got so much term left, and he's not a 2.5. I think it's 2.4. He's not a $2.4 million player. I mean, That's not a ton of money with the cap going up, but it's the term. If he was a rental, I think you could move him out and clear the space. The names that I think that could move out to clear an amount of cap space would be Robertson and would be possibly Connor Timmins, because I don't see the role for Connor Timmins if they add a right shot defenseman, which I think that's probably going to be their focus, is to add a righty, maybe pair him with Morgan Rielly, move Oliver Ekman-Larsson back to the left side, which I think he's more effective, and then either you pair him with whoever the righty is, depending on, if it's Savard or Schenn or whoever. You have Tanev, and then I don't know whether you want to keep McCabe on the one side. I mean, it gives you a lot more flexibility. There's no, and you're going to need flexibility when it comes to the playoffs because, you're always going to have some defenseman who gets hurt blocking a shot. And you always need 8 or 9 defensemen when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to this Mikko Rantanen situation that's been talked about quite a bit. It's an interesting one. So earlier this week, Sportsnet's Nick Kypreos came out saying what the Hurricanes would be looking at in return if they decide to move Mikko Rantanen and flip him. They'd want one of Easton Cowan or Fraser Minton, Bobby McMahon, and a draft pick. That's what Nick Kypreos said. To do this deal, you would think that would mean Marner is probably like that. It basically, to get Rantanen as an option for us, you would think Marner is possibly like out the door, or maybe the negotiations aren't going well. But should Leaf fans be thinking this could happen, or do you like the idea of Rantanen coming to Toronto and replacing Marner, basically?
Well, okay. Sure, I'd love it in terms of trading for Mikko Rantanen, but trading for him doesn't mean he's going to stay here. And that's the thing. It's like,
well, it'd have to be a guarantee that he stays here, right?
Well,
like he's going to sign. Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't give a guarantee to Carolina. So he's not, I think he wants to hit the open market for everything that's been reported is that he was stunned that he was traded from Colorado to Carolina. That he's not ready to commit to Carolina, even though Carolina has offered him an 8-year deal at greater than 12.5. I think Elliott said that was going to be close to 13. Okay. I mean, that's fair. And he'd be the highest paid winger in the NHL. I don't know where he wants to go. I mean,
maybe he wants to go back to Colorado.
Maybe. Yeah. But the thing is, I mean, are you going to go back to Colorado with your tail between your legs? You know, they've traded you. Now you're going to come back at a 7-year deal instead of an 8-year deal, unless it's a sign and trade.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, really, you know, it's like, okay, they sort of spit in your face. They sort of, you know, they told you, and I don't think that this changes the equation there. The whole reason that they traded Mikko Rantanen is because next year they don't want to have Rantanen making $13 million. Nathan McKinnon making what he's making, and then have to sign Makar, and Makar is probably going to cost more than both of them. So they're like in Toronto Maple Leaf territory, paying, you know, big money to, and they have other players like Devin Taves and Nikushkin who are making significant money as well. So I think the calculation there was it's either we pay Rantanen or we pay Makar, and Makar is more valuable than a winger, even though he's one of the best wingers in the league. But coming back to Toronto, I look at it and say, are you trading for Rantanen to make a run at a Stanley Cup? Because I think you're signing one of them and not both of them, either Marner or Rantanen.
Yeah.
And I think there's less of a chance of you getting Rantanen on an 8-year deal than Marner. It's with Marner, it's what do you want to pay him and what is he asking? And with Rantanen, you have to determine where does he want to go to Toronto? Does he want to stay in Toronto? Or is he just going to be a gun for hire? I mean, I've heard, you know, Los Angeles is a possibility for him. There's New Jersey. There's other teams. And remember, the thing that's going to be attractive about him is that Carolina can retain 50% and he would be a 2 point something $million contract. So, I mean, that would be unbelievable.
Yeah.
But, and it wouldn't, you know, you're basically having to open up enough cap space, the same amount for Luke Schenn as you would for Mikko Rantanen. But I just don't know. I mean, I don't know whether Carolina is going to trade him or not. It sounds like even if he doesn't agree to a deal, they're going to try to work on him, after the deadline and see if they can get him signed before July the 1st, you know, take their run at the Stanley Cup, which I don't think is realistic because I don't think their defense is as good as it was last year. Their goaltending, we know it's Freddie Anderson, so we know their goaltending sucks. And you know, their forwards are pretty good, but Rantanen has played terribly since he got there. So
yeah.
I think the chances of him getting traded are less than 50%, and the chances of him being traded to Toronto are about 1%.
Any chance this is out there is like a bit of a leverage, you know, to kind of put a little bit of a fire under Marner?
On Mitchie? Oh,
Yeah. Like
no,
a bit of a ploy in the media to kind of get
agent.
him to, to get him to think that maybe, it's not a slam dunk that he's going to be able to get whatever he wants out of Toronto.
It would be a high price to pay to make a Rantanen deal just to put the fear of God into Darren Ferris and Mitch Marner. If they're floating this just to, hey, we're open to this, and hey, we could offer him an 8-year deal, and you can say bye-bye and go enjoy the next 7 years in Utah or something like that. I mean, anything is possible. That's sort of like, 3-dimensional chess, like Mr. Spock played in Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I don't think they're thinking that far ahead. I honestly think that if they, Marner and his future depend on how far the Leafs go in the playoffs. And if they lose in the first round, I think he's toast. I think he's gone. And I think they spend their money, adding to their defense, maybe going after a Sam Bennett or somebody like that. And if they, go to the conference final, then I think Marner will get signed, but I don't think it'll be for as much as Darren Ferris and he and his dad hope they sign.
Okay, so we're just talking about the whole possible Rantanen thing. So his trade from Colorado to Carolina really was the deal that kind of seemed to open the door to like early trade activity when it happened. Then the Four Nations break happened, and even though there was no official freeze, movement essentially stopped. Yesterday, Seth Jones was moved. So do you think the door has kind of been reopened, or are there so many teams still in the mix that we may have actually a trade deadline where there's like a lot of stuff that kind of happens in the 11th hour
on Friday? So that's the reason why I took a day off.
I've taken a day off on the deadline since I was 11. So, I mean, I think it's going to sort of play out like it did last year, where the Friday, the deadline day is going to be a lot of rental deals, a lot of prospect draft pick for rentals, traded through a second team, retain 50%, retain another 25%, that kind of stuff. Any kind of impactful deal like the Jones deal, I think is going to happen before then.
So then you're like more in this door is kind of reopened a little bit now.
Yeah. I mean,
camp.
Yeah, I mean, there's supposedly, Erik Karlsson, maybe on the block. If you look at the way he played today, you can keep him, especially making, $10 million a year and throwing pizzas to Matthew Nyes like he did. There are some other names out there that I think, God, if I had $1 for every time Dylan Cousins' name has been floated out there from Buffalo or Elias Pettersson in Vancouver, those deals are either going to happen, Tuesday, Wednesday, or they're going to wait until the summer. I think more than likely they're going to wait until the summer, especially with Pettersson. If he gets moved, I mean, his no move clause isn't kicked in until July 1st. So, but yeah, I mean, the Jones deal, I mean, it tells me that the Tkachuk injury from the Four Nations is more serious than thought, because even though they only added, because remember, they traded Spencer Knight back to Chicago, and I think he was in the 4s in salary, and Seth Jones, even with the retention of salary from Chicago, is a $7 million cap hit. So Florida added $2.5 up to $3 million in cap room. They didn't have that much cap space. So that tells me that Matthew Tkachuk is going to be pulling a Mark Stone, and he might be playing in game 1 of the playoffs, but might be sitting out the rest of the regular season, getting his injured groin back to as close to 100% as possible. That may
Spencer Knight was their backup goalie.
Was their backup, yes.
Yeah.
But he was the goalie. He was purportedly their goalie of the future. Yeah. Then he had some issues. Reportedly, they were more like nerves and those type of things. He went into the NHL Players Assistance Program, and he has not been the goalie that he was since before, but I still think he's a good bet because, he's a talented goaltender. But they have Bobrovsky, and they're making a run now, and they're throwing all their chips into the middle of the table to repeat. And if I were them, I would do the same thing. But this is an instance where the Leafs have to take advantage of their opportunity to win the Atlantic Division and not fall into that 2-3 corridor of death and play either the Panthers or Tampa Bay, who are both, Tampa Bay especially is red hot. The Leafs need to win the Atlantic and avoid either one of those teams. That's why maybe it'll be beneficial for Treliving to, make a couple of additions, but not at the cost of, giving up, 2 players who you drafted in the first round over the last 3 seasons. It would just be dumb.
Yeah. All right. So at the top of the segment, we mentioned that you have added to your hockey portfolio more jobs. And you're now the co-managing editor of hockeyhotstove.com. So tell us a bit about this new venture that you're doing.
Yeah. Well, Bill Meltzer, you have a couple ex-hockey buzzers here, we're just striking out on our own and starting our own website. And, it was a situation where, it was just time to move on after 15 years in the same place and new challenges. I'm going to be pretty much doing the same thing that I did for the previous website, which is covering the Leafs on a daily basis. I'll be doing a little more at general NHL stuff as well. Also doing a number of podcasts. I do Off the Post Radio and the Leafs Convo, and if I can, fit in anything else on my ridiculously busy schedule, I will. But yeah, I mean, pretty much it's going to mimic what I was doing for Hockey Buzz, but a lot more responsibility. It's not just going to simply be me writing and then taking a nap. It's going to be writing and then a lot of other stuff. But it's a challenge, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's going to eventually cover all teams, right? Like
yes.
32 teams. Yeah.
Well, we're starting off with a limited staff, but we'll be increasing as the summer goes along, ramping up towards next season. And we're essentially going to start the website as, bare bones. So it's just blogs and podcasts, but then expand to different things and different features as things go along. So it's going to be, not archaic because, no,
it's exciting. It's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
More content for the Leafs, especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
We love that. And our listeners do too. So we definitely think so. But did you want to ask something, Sel?
I was just going to say, so like, it's kind of going to kind of be a hub for a lot of the things that you're doing now.
Yeah.
So like your shows, some of your other blogs as well, and then build from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, primarily my responsibility will be the Leafs on a daily basis. Essentially, because I covered the Leafs for Hockey Buzz for 15 years. I wrote every day for about 5 years, like even during the summer, even though when there was nothing to write about, I would cover prospects and things of that nature. So that's not going to change. And, but there'll be also some more, general NHL commenting on, like if our site was live, and we'll probably be going live at some point this week, hopefully before the deadline. I would write something on the Seth Jones trade. I would basically have said what I said just a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Meltzer, he primarily covers the Philadelphia Flyers, but he's also going to be covering, some divisional stuff and some general NHL stuff. So, it's like I said, it's going to be a challenge, but it's exciting. So we're looking forward to it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Well, We congratulate you on that. And of course, we will definitely get the word out to all of our listeners on that. So with that, Mike, we thank you once again for being a guest with us. And of course, this is going to be an exciting week, and we'll probably have you on in short order to discuss the fallout likely.
Yeah.
Anyway, everyone, you can hear more of Mike's Leaf views on the Leafs Convo podcast. And he is also host of Off the Post Radio covering the NHL. And you can find both shows on YouTube as well. And as we just mentioned, there's more to come soon with hockeyhotstove.com. And please do follow him on X for updates on that. And his handle is @MikeInBuffalo. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right. So, that was quite the interesting conversation with Mike. We covered a lot. I did think, like the way you brought up, that it was interesting, the fact that all these media people, whether it be on TSN or Sportsnet, they put out all these ideas about like trading like Cowan, McMahon, and a first round pick for Rantanen or some idea like that. Like it was interesting to get Mike's perspective to say that, it's like, it's because it's Toronto, right? Like it's,
as he was saying that, it kind of reminded me of, like what happens with the Blue Jays in the off season. We're going to get Shohei Ohtani and, guys like that. And they're in the mix because there's media here that pumps that up. Like for the Leafs, even more so because, we're like the mecca of hockey here. So anything big, the Leafs are going to be involved, of course.
Yeah.
I was glad that's how you get the eyeballs on it.
Yeah. I was glad that he also confirmed what we both thought anyways too. It's ridiculous how like the first round pick and Cowan and Minton, like that, it's for what they're Braden Schenn. Like, I don't know. I just don't, I agree with him totally to say like, that's way too much for a player that's like 33 years old and you have the three years left on his deal. And then
and we were just talking about John Tavares just now, and I would rather be giving him that money.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. In that. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Like I'd rather be giving him that money, and because we know him and he loves playing here. Obviously, he chose to come here, and he's given us all he can. Like for the years that he has been a Leaf. So I definitely would much prefer that. And but it was great having Mike on the show as always. And it'll be great to see what his new venture is about, this hockeyhotstove.com in the next little bit. But for now, the Leafs are in first place in the Atlantic with a game in hand on the Florida Panthers, and it's going to
which we're going to need badly.
Yeah, and it's going to be a busy month of March with 15 games.
Every other night hockey.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the road games continue this week, starting on Wednesday night in Vegas to face the Golden Knights. That's after our one kind of home game versus San Jose on Monday, which I don't know, that just seems kind of odd the way the schedule makers did this one. Yeah. And then on Saturday, we head to Denver to face the Colorado Avalanche. Final game of this road trip will be in Utah, which will be our first game against the team formerly known as the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, the Utah Hockey Club. Did they ever figure out the name of
they have
team?
Not unveiled the official name yet. No.
All right. Yeah. But those first
I know the Outlaws is back in the mix, which makes me happy since they can't use Yeti, that was my first choice.
Yeah.
But I like the Outlaws. I think you can do some pretty cool things with that. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's like a little bit of a violent thing. I don't know.
Just goes well, right?
Good,
with hockey,
But I kind of like it. A little bit of more of a Wild West type of name.
I wonder for the Vegas game, I wonder if Samsonov is going to play his old team, if they're
I don't know. Like they seem to be like, he hasn't played against us yet.
No.
It's almost like whenever a goalie of ours leaves, they get shielded and they don't play them against us. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, they're both going to be tough games. That game and Colorado, obviously, with McKinnon. That's going to be. I believe they're doing pretty well with their new.
Yeah, he's kind
player.
of on fire right now.
Yeah, and that Martin Necas that they got from Carolina.
Yeah,
he seems to be fitting in quite well.
Yes, he's the guy that is the real winner in that deal. He's like probably going. I heard him like he had a quote saying that he actually feels free finally for the first time.
Really?
Because they have a really more offensive, more open game.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Rod Brind'Amour
is very defensive oriented, right? So he's like having a grand old time there now.
All right. Well, it's going to be a grand old time for this week, being trade deadline on the Friday. So we'll be back next week with an episode of Leafs Quick Hits covering all the games and what the Leafs did or didn't do at the trade deadline. In the meantime, don't forget to hit that follow button wherever you are listening to our show. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And you can also find us on the Believe Network at Believe.com. It's BLEAV.com. We'd also love to hear from you. Be sure to leave us a rating or review. Feedback from our listeners is so important, and we thank you for taking the time.
And another way to help us out is by visiting our Ko-fi page at Ko-fi.com. You can follow us there, and if you choose to, you can support us by buying us a coffee. Any donation goes towards helping us produce the show and making it even better for you. You can find the link to our Ko-fi page on our show notes or in any of our social media profile pages.
And as always, we say thank you to our healthcare workers and first responders for everything that they do.
And we thank you, as always, for listening and watching Ladies Talkin' Leafs presented by BetOnline. Till next time, go Leafs, go.
Go.
Do you believe?